So, welcome everyone. My name is Elisa with XY Zone Wellness, and so this is the first of 14 classes that we're going to do this semester. So, we're going to start out, and really for all the classes that I teach, I really teach an all levels type of class. So, I really want all of us to move in the way that feels good for us today. So not worrying about how we move any other time, just honoring how our bodies feel today. So for instance, I have a scrape on my knee, so I will be using a blanket to cushion my knee. And if you have, tender knees, you could always use a blanket. I often recommend having blocks or a strap. And if you don't have, traditional yoga props, you could actually use books, you could use a belt, you could use a towel if you don't have a blanket. So having those things to make your practice more accessible and to fit how you're feeling in the moment is always a really great thing to do. And then just really remembering and embracing the thought of honoring your body, honoring the body that you have today. So as we move through the practice, and I offer different variations, always picking and choosing what feels good to you in the moment. And remembering, since we're all in our own space, nobody can see anyway, so moving in a way that feels good to you. So what we're going to do for today is we're going to start on our backs. So finding a comfortable position, and you might choose to roll down or turn to your side, but lying on your back. And knees might be bent, or you could extend your legs if that feels better. We're going to take this time to first just connect our bodies to the earth. So as you settle into your position, and if you prefer to be seated, that's fine as well, just allowing yourself to really soften, feeling the body almost dissolve into the ground. Feeling the weight of the body just connecting to the earth. Noticing any parts of your body that are being held and being supported. So even if you're seated in a chair, you might feel the support that the chair is giving you. And if it feels okay, allowing the eyes to close, or they can just softly flutter. Maybe if you're in a chair, letting your gaze come down towards the floor. And as we give ourselves permission to relax here, noticing any sensations in the body. Being aware of what it feels like to be in your body in this moment. And then we'll just start to come to the breath. Noticing how your breath is, noticing the quality and the structure. So whether your breath is smooth and even, or if you feel it maybe getting stuck somewhere. And making all these observations without attaching any judgments or any stories. And as we watch the breath, you might even choose to place one hand on the belly and one hand on the chest. Feeling out as you inhale, breathing in through the nose, letting the in-breath come all the way down to the belly, expanding through the belly, and then the ribs, and then the chest. And then as we exhale, feeling that reverse, so exhaling, emptying the chest, and then the ribs, and then down to the belly. We'll repeat that a few times, feeling one breath after the other. Just like waves coming to the shore. Inhaling, creating space in the body, expanding. And then exhaling, fully letting go. Letting go of anything that no longer serves us. Letting go of expectations and judgments. Letting go of competition. Limiting beliefs. So taking just a few more breaths right here with the eyes still closed. And then whenever you're ready, just beginning to invite some small movement. So that might be gently letting the knees rock from side to side, or you could stretch long, almost like a good morning stretch. Maybe turning the head from one side to another. And bringing arms down alongside the body, we'll bend the knees, bringing feet flat on the ground. And we're going to start bringing some more movement into the body. So from here, we're going to first inhale, letting the low back press into the earth. As we exhale, we'll bring the left leg in towards the chest, flexing the foot, spreading the toes wide. And as we inhale, we'll bring that foot back down to the ground, exhaling, right knee in towards the chest. So turning this into a flowing movement, we'll inhale, lowering the foot, and exhaling, bringing the other leg in. Inhaling down, and then exhaling. So as we switch from one side to the other, we might keep the knees bent, or you might choose to extend that opposite leg, but only if that feels okay with the low back. We can inhale, arms overhead, and then exhaling, switching sides. So we're just starting to wake up the lower back, maybe feeling this into the hips, being aware of both sides of the body, so you might notice this more on one side than another. This is a nice flowing movement to do, especially if we're sitting a lot. Releasing the low back every time we bring a knee in. And only bringing that knee in as far as feels good. We'll do one more to each side. And then lowering that right foot down to the ground. We'll bring the left knee in once again. And we'll start to make some circles with that ankle. So drawing circles with that big toe on the left foot. We'll go a few times in each direction. And then lowering the left foot down to the ground. We'll bring the right knee in and we'll make our circles on this side. Not worrying if we're making a little bit of music with our ankles. And we'll switch to the other direction as well. And then bringing both feet to the floor. We'll walk our feet into an alignment with our hips. Bringing hands down next to the body. We're going to flow through bridge pose. So first, again, inhaling. And as we inhale, start to scoot the tailbone away from the ground, lifting the hips, coming into a diagonal line between knees and shoulders. Lifting those hips to the sky. Again, beautiful opportunity to stretch out the front of the hips, the hip flexors. And then we'll exhale, lowering back down to the ground. Inhaling, pressing the heels down to lift those hips. And exhaling, lowering. So we'll flow through this a few times using the breath once again. And if at any point this feels uncomfortable to the neck, then we can lower down and bring our knees into the chest once again. Arms can stay next to the body, or if we'd like, We can add those in as well. Inhaling, lifting, and exhaling, lowering. And just one or two more like this. Lowering down, we'll bring the knees to the chest. And this time we're going to draw some circles with our knees. So holding on behind the thighs. This gets into the fascia on the back of the body, into the lumbar spine region. But if this doesn't feel good to the spine or to your hips, you can stay still. And then bringing our feet down to the ground, we're going to roll to one side using our hands. We'll come into a kneeling posture. So this might be one of those times where if you have tender knees, you might roll up your mat or add a little extra cushioning, like I'm going to do. And we're going to bring hands directly underneath shoulder, knees or under hips. And we'll spread our fingertips wide, maybe making fist for wrist if we have any wrist issues. And we're going to start right here in tabletop. So this is a nice neutral position. So not too low, not too high. And we're going to actually explore some of those options for the spine. So starting in our table, we're going to inhale, letting the tailbone lift, the belly drop. So letting your belly drop down towards the floor as we let our heart shine forward into cow pose. Exhaling, tailbone drops, and now we're going to curve one vertebra at a time, rounding the spine into cat. Chin comes towards the chest. Inhaling, unraveling one vertebra after another. And then exhaling, rounding, really linking breath with movement. One breath for one movement. Massaging out the full length of the back. So as we're moving here, thinking about going from the tailbone to the crown of the head, letting the crown of the head move last. And if this is feeling good, you can stay right here, or you could add in some hip circles. Exploring any free movement here that your body might need. So always paying attention to what your body's telling you. And staying here for just one or two more rounds of breath, whether it's cat and cow or some circles for the hips. And then coming back into that neutral spine. So between cat and cow, we're going to move through spinal balance. So first we'll inhale the right arm forward, thumb is reaching up towards the sky, spine is nice and long, and then we'll exhale a hand down to the floor. Inhaling, reaching the left arm forward, and exhaling to lower. So we'll continue to go from side to side, and we can stay here using our arms only, or if we'd like, the next time we can add the opposite leg. So left leg, right arm. And if we're lifting that leg, we'll let the toes point down towards the ground. Spine is nice and long, so thinking about getting long, not just lifting up. Exhaling to lower, and we'll switch sides. So right leg, left arm. Imagining we have a glass of water on our low back, and we want to keep that water from tipping or spilling. So now that we've got that, we'll move with the breath again. Inhaling to extend, exhaling to lower. And anytime you'd like, you can return to using just the arms, or you could do just legs. But we're really strengthening the spine here as we lengthen, getting long, almost as if we're being pulled in opposite directions. Always moving with the breath, letting the breath be kind of the leader of our practice. We'll do just one more time to each side. So lengthening, coming to the other side. And then as we come back into our tabletop, we're going to sit back into a child's pose. So knees can stay as they are, or you might want the knees to be as wide as your mat, bringing big toes together, sending hips all the way back towards the heels, lowering the forehead down towards the ground. Now, if your forehead doesn't make it all the way down, that's okay. We could stack our wrists or our fists, and maybe a block underneath the forehead, allowing the back of the neck to release. And this is a great place to come anytime we need to check in with the body. But if for any reason this isn't comfortable, say if you're having any knee issues, you could stay in that tabletop pose. From here, we're going to inhale, looking forward, and we'll walk both hands over towards the left side of the mat, crawling fingertips forward, getting into the side body, lengthening from the right fingertips all the way to that right hip and heel. Inhaling, we'll walk hands across over to the right side, still sitting that left hip on the heel, getting into the side body, getting into those left ribs, through the shoulder. And as we come back to center, finding that child's pose. If we have the wide-legged child's pose, we'll bring knees back. We're going to flow through what we call our half series. So we're going to start first very simply, inhaling forward to a kneeling plank. Hands are stacked directly underneath the shoulders. We're lifting through the belly, so rather than sagging like a hammock or aggravating the lower back, we're going to be lifted nice and strong, pushing the floor away from us. Exhaling, we'll come back to child's pose. So that's our flow, inhaling forward and exhaling back. Now you could stop in child or tabletop if you'd like, or you can come forward to this kneeling plank. And this is the basic of our vinyasa. So anytime we have an option for vinyasa, this could be it. Although we do have the option to add on. So if you'd like, this next time as we come forward, we might choose to add in a crocodile push-up, exhaling either halfway or all the way down, and then inhaling up. So that push-up is optional, and we're only going to add it if we can do so with control. We want to have arms hugged in next to the body, getting into those tricep muscles, the backs of the arms. If you feel like you're losing control or sagging in that push-up, you can leave it out. And then another option would be to come forward into that tabletop, once again, maybe doing more of a tabletop push-up, which is a little less challenging to the core if we're building strength. So whatever variation of this vinyasa we're doing, we'll do one more round, and then we'll come back into the child's pose, knowing that you can go into that child's pose anytime you need to, never needing permission to rest. And from this child's pose, we could choose to stay here, or we can lift into a downward facing dog. So to do that, we'll spread our fingertips really wide into starfish hands. We'll tuck our toes under, and then lifting those hips to the sky, come into a downward facing dog. So checking in, we're going to make sure our hands are still about shoulder width apart, feet are about hip distance, and we'll bring our gaze back towards our heels. Chest is reaching towards the legs, and knees can be bent a little or a lot right here. So maybe starting out with really bent knees, then we could pedal our feet if we'd like, getting into the calves and the hamstrings. Remembering anytime this gets too much, we can lower the knees back down to the ground, coming either to table or to child's pose. From here, we're going to come into stillness in our downward facing dog. Ears are between our bicep muscles. We'll inhale, looking forward, engaging through the core, drawing navel to spine. And as we exhale, we'll take a walk to the front of our mats, coming into a forward fold. Crown of the head reaching down towards the ground, shaking out our head and neck. So we'll shake our heads no, saying no to those limiting beliefs. And then nodding our heads yes, saying yes, I am enough, just as I am. Deepening the bend in our knees. We're going to inhale, circle sweeping up, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, bringing hands together at the heart. So we're in mountain pose, and I'm going to turn to face you. You might choose to turn as well. We're going to come into a wide-legged stance with our toes and knees pointing towards the corners of our mat. And we'll come into a little bit of a squat. We're going to start flowing through moonflowers. Inhale, we'll bring arms up, finding a 5-pointed star. So really lengthening in all directions. As we exhale, sitting down into a squat, arms are kind of like cactus arms, either at the side of the body or maybe even closer, bringing elbows in towards ribs, getting expansion across the chest. Inhaling, we'll lift, and exhaling, we'll lower. So continuing to move with the breath, and only going as low as feels good to you here. And if you'd like, if it's a little early in the morning, you could choose to keep those arms out of the equation, maybe focusing more on opening through the hips. Or you could add those arms back in. So the more we do this, the warmer the body gets, and we're getting into those hips that carry a lot of emotion, a lot of stress. They just get tight from all the sitting that we tend to do. One more. Now we're going to turn this into sunflower. So as we exhale, hinging at the hips, making a big, beautiful circle with the arms. So as we lift, we inhale, and as we exhale, we lower, keeping the spine nice and long. So when we're hinging forward, still keeping heart above the hips, and not worrying about getting all the way down. So as we move through our moonflowers and now our sunflowers, you might want to alternate or pick a favorite. We do just a few more. So we'll make this next one the last one. And then exhaling, hands come to the heart. So we'll come back into kind of a mountain pose here with our feet hip distance apart. We're going to start to flow through chair pose. So starting with our firm base, we'll inhale, and as we exhale, sitting hips back as if we were sitting into an imaginary chair. Inhaling up and exhaling to lower. Choosing any arm options that feel good to you. Bringing that weight towards the heels, so toes might get a little light on the floor. Really feeling that warmth that we're creating. And then just one more time like this. And stepping back to the top of our mats, coming into that mountain pose once again. So finding that firm foundation and really finding the four corners of the feet. So thinking about the base of the big toe, the baby toe, the inner edge of the heel, and the outer edge of the heel. We're going to roll the shoulders back and down, creating that openness across the chest and the front of the shoulders, softening our knees, feeling this strength and stability in our mountain pose. Relaxing the chin and the jaw, so rather than jutting the head forward, finding that feeling as if we have maybe an orange or a softball between the chin and the chest, and feeling the power in this pose. So we were moving through some powerful poses, and now holding this mountain pose, we're finding our power, finding our strength. Inhaling, we'll sweep those arms overhead once again. And then exhale, hinging at the hips, coming into our forward fold once again. Crown of the head is reaching down towards the ground. Knees are nice and soft. We're going to lift into a halfway lift. So hands could stay on the ground. We could use our blocks or maybe bring hands to shins as we lengthen the spine as if our spine were like a bungee cord. Shoulders are drawing away from the ears and our gaze is down towards the floor. So rather than worrying about looking forward at the screen, keeping our gaze down towards the ground. And then as we exhale, we're just going to melt the body down, keeping knees soft coming back into that forward fold, belly's resting on the thighs. And then from here, we're going to step the right foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground. I'm going to add my blanket. So you might want to add your little bit of cushion there. So we're in a low lunge. Left knee is over the ankle. Hands could be on the ground or on our blocks, bringing that floor a little bit closer to us. And then walking hands up that front thigh. It's almost as if we're pushing that thigh away from us. And we're creating a straight line right now from the head, the shoulders, and that right hip. Hands could stay low. Right, inhaling, sweeping arms up if we have the stability. If not, hands could be low. Exhaling, bringing hands to heart center at prayer position. Taking a moment to check in with both sides of the body. So noticing that both legs are doing a little something different and being aware of how that feels to both sides of the body. Exhaling, hands come to the floor. We'll frame that front foot and we're going to step the left foot back. So coming into our kneeling position and sitting our hips back into child's pose. So you could choose to stay here in child's pose, or you can move through that vinyasa that we were exploring just a little while ago. So if you're choosing that vinyasa, we inhale forward, exhale to push up, inhaling back up, and exhaling into child's pose. We can do that one more time if we'd like. Always remembering it's your choice, whatever feels good to you. And then exhaling, finding yourselves back in child's pose. This time we'll step the right foot forward. So now we're in our lunge on the other side of the body. Right knee is over the ankle. Settling into this posture. And then if it feels okay, we could choose to bring our hands up to that front thigh. So you might choose to inhale the arms up again, or if you'd like, maybe choosing a different posture for the arms. So maybe taking a chest expansion, interlacing hands behind the body, or taking cactus arms. So we spend so much of our days leaning forward over screens or devices. So this is a good way to counteract that by opening the chest and the front of the shoulders. As we exhale, we'll release that if we had an arm posture, and bringing hands to the floor, we'll tuck the left toes under, coming into runner's lunge, and then stepping that left foot to the top of the mat, coming into our forward fold once again. Inhaling halfway, finding our monkey pose, that flat back, and then exhaling, rounding, forward fold. Inhaling, reverse swan dive, and as we exhale, we'll sit into another chair position. Inhaling to lift, and then exhaling, leading with the heart as we swan dive, forward fold. Inhaling halfway, monkey pose. Again, thinking about that neck. It's so easy to look forward, but letting that back of the neck relax, relaxing shoulders away from ears, rounding into that forward fold. And this time as we step back, we're going to step the left foot back, lowering the knee down to the ground, coming into our lunge. So hands might start on our blocks. We can lift into our more lifted posture. And this time we have an option to add in a twist. So hands can come to heart center in prayer position, finding that length, crown of the head towards the sky. We'll inhale here, and then as we exhale, twisting over to the right side. So hands can stay in this prayer position, or if you'd like, bring the left hand either to the floor or to the block and opening our wings. So any variation that feels good to you here. Turning the head and neck in whatever direction feels safest. And then inhaling, we'll come back to face the front. Hands come down to the floor, and we'll step that right foot back, lowering the knees down to the ground. So this time, again, options here. Staying still in child's pose, flowing through that vinyasa, or you can lift into a downward facing dog. So making the choice that feels right for this time, not needing to make the same choice every time. And if you're flowing, you can flow 2 times through that vinyasa. And then we'll all meet In a child's pose, hips resting on the heels. On the next in-breath, we'll step that left foot to the top of the mat between our hands. Bringing hands to our blocks, maybe to that thigh. And then remember, we had that option for twist on the other side. We'll bring hands first to prayer position, inhaling for length, and then as we exhale, twisting to the left side. So hands could stay here, we could stay in this more lifted twist. We can bring that right hand down to the floor or to our block, maybe keeping the left hand on the thigh or opening those wings. Looking up or looking down, knowing there's no right or wrong. It's always about honoring the body, what the body needs right now. As we inhale, we'll come back into our lunge. Exhaling, hands come down to frame that front foot. We'll tuck the right toes under. And then big step, or as many steps as you'd like, to come into our forward fold. Crown of the head towards the ground. And then bending those knees, we'll inhale, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, sitting into chair pose. Inhaling, we'll lift. Bring hands to the heart. We're coming back into our mountain pose, and I'm just going to scoot my blanket out of the way. So from our mountain pose, finding that length and rooting down through both feet, feeling that strength and stability. We're going to step the left foot back. So right foot is facing the front of our mat, left foot's at an angle, and the right knee is directly over the ankle as well. So finding that stability and really being aware of that left heel pressing into the ground. So if you find that your left heel is lifted, then maybe stepping that foot in a little bit closer so that you're able to ground that back foot. Coming into warrior one, we're going to square our shoulders towards the front edge of the mat and maybe inhaling those arms into traditional warrior arms, relaxing the shoulders down from the ears. So if we find ourselves hunched up here, relaxing down. Maybe even bringing hands to the heart if that feels more accessible. Finding our power and our strength in this pose. Really finding a little bit of strength too into that rear glute. Engaging that glute, engaging the core. On our next in-breath, we're going to turn our torso towards the long edge of our mat, towards the left side, and maybe opening our feet up a little bit wider, coming into warrior two. So setting up here, shoulders are over hips. Arms can be at shoulder height if that feels okay. If not, finding maybe that prayer position with our arms. And turning our gaze out over the right fingertips if they are extended. So we'll take a peek down, making sure we can see the right big toe inside the knee. If you notice your knees flopping in, giving it a little bit of help. So we're creating a lot of strength here, holding this pose. We'll turn the right palm up, inhaling. We'll lift, we'll come into reverse warrior. So right hand is over the shoulder. Left hand can be on the back leg or sweeping around the lower back. Choosing to look up or maybe look down. And then as we exhale, we're going to come back into that warrior two. We'll bend the front elbow now, bringing the forearm down to the thigh. So we're coming into side angle pose. The right forearm can stay on the thigh, or we can choose to use our block, bringing the hand to the floor or the block. Left hand can stay on that hip or opening to the sky. Being really careful here though, when we come into this pose, we might start moving the hips around. We want to keep our hips in that warrior position. And maybe extending that arm overhead, getting nice and long from the left fingertips to the left foot. From here, if we had our hand low, we'll bring the forearm back to the thigh and we'll inhale, lifting back into warrior two. For one last breath here. So we're really creating a lot of strength in the legs. And to come out of it, we'll cartwheel the arms. Coming into our runner's lunge, we'll step the right foot back. So we're back in downward facing dog, or maybe we're lowering the knees to child's pose. We could choose to pedal out the feet or add in our vinyasa here. So any movement that might feel good. You might even swivel the feet or the hips a little bit. Or if it feels really good, just staying still, honoring that. And then coming back into stillness in our downward facing dog. We'll take a walk to the front of our mats, coming into forward fold, holding on to elbows or just dangling like a rag doll as we maybe add in a little swaying motion. Bringing that back into center, into stillness. Deepening the bend in our knees as we inhale, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, hands come to the heart. So I'm going to switch sides on my mat, but you can stay just as you are. We'll do that all again. So this time stepping the right foot back, coming into that warrior one position. Scoring those shoulders towards the front edge of the mat. And finding any position that feels good for our arms in warrior one. So we might stay with those traditional warrior one arms, or we could open up into cactus again, getting a nice heart opener here. Setting our gaze or our drishti. Still making sure that the back heel is pressing into the earth, so equal weight into both legs, both sides of the body. And then getting ready to open up into warrior two. We'll inhale, turning the torso towards the right edge of the mat. And you might need to step that rear foot back a little bit more like I did, getting a little more space for the body. You can release those arms down if you need a nice little break there. And then if it feels good, bring arms to shoulder height. Always honoring the shoulders. So sometimes this might be a little much. We can bring hands to heart center. So again, strengthening that front thigh, thinking about opening that thigh, spiraling it towards the pinky toe edge of the foot. Meeting these challenging moments on the mat, and knowing that when we do meet them on the mat, we can meet them off the mat as well. We'll turn that palm towards the sky, the front palm. Inhaling, taking our reverse warrior. Looking up towards that left hand, maybe down towards the back foot. And noticing if you're experimenting with those two options, how they might feel different to the neck. And then as we inhale, coming back to warrior two for just a moment before we shift into our side angle pose. So we can bend that front forearm, bringing the forearm down to the thigh, staying right here if that feels okay, or if you'd like, opening that top arm, opening our wings, and the forearm can stay on the thigh or lowering down, but that's not necessary. We can stay right here. Maybe extending that right arm, lengthening through the side body, through the side ribs. Pressing that right foot into the mat, so thinking about the outside edge of the mat still being strongly rooted into the earth. Engaging through the core, through the side body, so not just sinking the body here. And then as we inhale, we'll lift, coming back into warrior two. Cartwheeling those arms, coming into our runner's lunge. And then we're going to step the left foot back to meet the right. We'll lower knees down to the ground. And we'll come into any variation of child's pose that feels good right here. So keeping knees close or wider apart. And arms can be extended, an extended child pose, or you can bring hands back towards the feet, letting elbows and shoulders just relax and drop down towards the earth. So taking this moment to check in with the body, noticing how this child's pose might be different from the very first one we did in the practice. So we've created a lot of heat and a lot of strength since we've been moving. Just noticing, being aware of any of the ways that your body might feel different in this moment. And extending those arms forward, crawling those fingertips towards the top of the mat. We're going to lift into another downward facing dog. This time walking hands back toward the feet. Softening our knees. And then deepening that bend, we'll inhale, lifting, reverse swan dive. Exhaling, hands come to the heart. So we're getting ready to add in a little bit of balance. And we always want to have at least a little bit of balance in our practice. And we want to have balance in our lives as well. So thinking about all the ways that we can create balance on and off the mat. And a really cool thing about balance is that when we're focusing on our balance, we can't think about anything else. So if there's something else going on in our lives and we need to maybe put that aside for a little while, coming to a balancing pose is a great way to do that. So today we're going to play with chair pose. And you're actually going to have the option of keeping it more of a flowing chair as we started with earlier, but I'm going to add on and give you a couple different choices and you can pick whatever feels good to you. So first, inhaling, and then exhaling, we'll sit into chair. So just warming up those muscles that we use for our chair, getting used to that movement. And you can do anything that you like with your arms, maybe experimenting, seeing how different options feel. And then either staying there with that flowing chair, or you can hold your chair. So this takes a lot of strength. So if you want to work on strength today, maybe staying here, holding this chair pose. Or if you'd like to add in that balance option, we'll start to put more of the weight into the right leg, maybe lifting the left heel away from the ground and noticing already that takes some balance to hold that pose, change the variation. Or you might start to lift that foot completely off the floor. So if you'd like, staying there, lowering the toes down to the ground anytime you need to. Or if you want to add a little more strength, lifting up, maybe bringing that knee into a high march, and staying there as long as feels good. Now, if you start to bobble or if you need to set your foot down, that's okay. You can always revisit the pose. And it's when we fall down that we get the opportunity to rise back up. So we'll lower that foot down. And then I always like to do a little bit of counter movement if we're doing balancing on two different sides of the body. So that might be some hip circles, where you shake out the arms and legs. Just paying attention to what your body needs before we go to the other side. And again, if you are flowing through chair or holding chair, then really you worked both sides, but we'll have one more opportunity to either do the same thing or do something different here. So we'll start first again, rooting down through the feet, feeling that connection between our bodies and the earth. And this time we'll just flow 2 times if we're going to come to the balance, or you might choose to continue to flow. So as we come into this third time with chair, option to hold or to shift that weight this time to the left foot, bringing the right heel away from the ground. And then maybe, if it feels okay, lifting that foot completely. But remembering that both sides of our body are very different. So we might end up feeling like we're balancing a little differently on this side of the body than we were on the other side. Maybe rising up. Maybe lifting that knee. Woo. Maybe setting it down, and that's okay too. And arms can be anywhere you'd like them. Relaxing the shoulders. And before we sit down, just really noticing we're creating a lot of strength in that standing hip. So into that gluteus medius, that's really getting a lot of strength to hold us here. And then we'll set it down. How did we do? All right. So I'm sure you guys did great. So I tend to like to do these hip circles, but maybe adding a little twist, shaking things out. And we'll get ready to make our way back onto the floor. So finding ourselves back in mountain pose at the top of our mat. Inhaling. We'll bring arms so that palms are facing each other. And we're going to take the right wrist or the right hand around the left wrist. Inhaling as if we're pushing the ceiling away from us. And then we'll exhale into a side bend. And when we come over to this right side, that left foot might get a little light on the ground, but pressing that left foot into the ground as we open all through the left side of the body. Inhaling to come back to center. And as we exhale, we'll switch hands. So now we're holding onto the right wrist. Inhaling, pushing the sky away. And then exhaling, taking that side bend over to the left. Curving the body. And you might look down or you can look up under that right arm. Inhaling, finding our way back to center. And then as we exhale, slow motion swan dive, deeply bending those knees, bringing hands to the floor. And we're going to walk our feet back into our last downward facing dog of the day. So before we lower down, we're going to give ourselves a little opportunity for some added strength here. We'll shift the body forward into a plank. Hands are directly underneath the shoulders. The legs are nice and firm, so thighs are firm, and anytime we need to, we can lower those knees down to the ground. But if you can, or if it feels appropriate for today, maybe staying here in this extended plank, or if you come to knees, wherever you are, we'll all lower all the way down to the floor, coming into a nice supine position. We're going to bring the hands stacking one on top of the other, and we'll bring the forehead to the ground. So first resting here, this is actually a little tiny back bend. So if this is enough back bend for you, you can stay right here. Or if you'd like, just a little bit more, we can bring elbows directly underneath shoulders. And we can check that by bringing our hands to the elbows, and then bringing the forearms back to the floor. We'll spread those fingers wide. We're coming into Sphinx pose. And this is a really nice back bend for the body. But again, if you'd like, lowering down into that first version that we did. Hips are pressing into the earth. The legs are nice and long, so toes are pointed. And we're lifting up and out of the shoulders. So if we find that we're hunched down here, lifting up, lifting the belly away from the floor. So it might not look like a lot is happening, but really thinking about that engagement in the core, engagement in the glutes. Relaxing the shoulders, setting our gaze, so maybe looking directly in front of us, and breathing. So anytime we're in any pose, if we notice that we're holding the breath or our breath is getting too labored, maybe we're trying too hard. So relaxing and maybe finding a gentler version of the pose. From here, we're going to slowly lower back down. So we'll turn those palms, stacking them one on top of the other, letting the forehead rest there. Or you could turn your head to one side, letting the spine neutralize. And it might feel really good to just let the head rest, let the spine be long. From here, we'll place our hands next to the shoulders, and we're going to push back into one last child's pose, finding that length in the body, sitting those hips all the way back, letting them sink down towards the ground, and coming back onto hands and knees. We'll set our bottoms on the ground, and we'll bring the legs forward. So we're making our way onto our backs where we started. So we'll hold on to one thigh, use that thigh as a handle to help us roll back. Tugging knees into chest. So either staying still here, adding those circles once again, or you can rock the knees back and forth. And then bringing feet to the floor. We're going to keep our knees bent. We'll inhale, taking the left leg up towards the sky. And this knee can be bent as much as you'd like. So if you have tight hamstrings, the knee might be bent a little bit more. And just first finding where it feels good, where you feel that stretch in the hamstring. We'll flex the foot. So letting that heel go up towards the sky, toes are drawing down towards the knee. And then bending that left knee will bring the right ankle across the left thigh, coming into figure 4 pose, or we could call this reclined pigeon pose. And we still want to keep that left foot flexed. That's going to protect the knee. Right foot can stay on the ground, or if your body wants a little more, you might choose to lift the right foot away from the ground. So if you're lifting that right foot, we want to keep that foot flexed as well. And sometimes we'll hold on to that thigh. You could choose to do that, but that can create tension in the shoulders. So you might actually let the arms rest next to the body and depend more on core strength to hold the legs here. And just breathing into this, noticing any sensation into that left hip and glute. So this is a nice way to get into the piriformis. If we have any tightness there. You might also notice this into the IT band if we're a runner. And remember, anytime you like, setting that right foot on the ground. And if it feels okay, we'll take just a couple more breaths wherever we are. And very slowly, if that foot is lifted, setting it down on the ground, we'll uncross the legs, and then just letting feet be as wide as the mat. We'll take a couple of windshield wipers, knees going in both directions. And then doing that on the other side. So we'll bring our knees back to center. We'll lift that right leg, holding on behind the thigh or the calf. Still keeping that foot flexed, and we'll spread the toes wide, sending some energy out the bottoms of the foot. And bending that right knee will bring the ankle across the thigh, finding any variation here. So left foot can stay grounded, or you can lift that leg, flexing both feet if they're lifted. And another option too, you might choose if you had a strap or a towel, you could take the towel around the thigh and hold on to that leg. So there's so many ways to modify and adjust our poses to fit our bodies. And it's never about looking like any one thing or looking a certain way. It's about making the pose fit your body. So just a couple more breaths right here. Noticing how this side might feel different from the first side. And then as we lower down, pausing for just a moment to notice both sides. And maybe adding those gentle windshield wipers. And this might be enough of a twist for you right now. Or if you'd like, we can turn this into a more passive twist. We can do that by lifting both hips up and over to the right side of the mat and bringing the knees over to the left side. Spreading those arms wide like a T, or maybe cactus arms. You could choose to turn your head away from your knees, getting a little more twist there. But I'm going to keep my head here looking at you. But whatever feels safest to the neck. So we always want to be super careful when it comes to the neck. But that's a great way to get a little flexibility in the neck if that feels okay to turn the head. You might choose to maybe place something between the thighs, maybe a pillow from the couch. And then just one, maybe two more breaths right here. And very slowly, we're going to come out of this. We'll bring the knees back to center. And now we'll lift both hips up and over to the left edge of the mat. Knees drop to the right side. Opening those arms if that feels okay. Looking in either direction or maybe up towards the sky. Letting the breath slow down, letting the body slow down. One more breath in this pose. We'll come back to center, finding any last little bit of movement or stillness your body needs. So if there's any pose that you've been wanting to do where you just feel like your body is calling you to do. And then as you're ready, we're going to come back maybe to where we started or maybe slightly different position. Knees can be bent, maybe dropping knees in towards each other, or legs could be extended into more of a traditional Shavasana with the legs wider or the feet wider than the hips. Arms could be out alongside the body, the palms turned up in a gesture of receiving. So we'll come back to that place of dissolving, allowing ourselves to absorb and integrate the benefits of our practice, giving ourselves permission to relax once again, feeling the body sinking into the earth, noticing all those places along the body that are being held, and allowing them to sink just a little deeper into the earth. And if you'd like, you could choose to stay here in the Shavasana a little bit longer, or if you need to get on with your day, we can start to bring some movement back to the body, wiggling fingers and toes, maybe running the thumb across the fingertips. Bending the knees in towards the body. And very gently rolling to one side into baby pose. Pausing here for a moment or two. using that top hand to help us lift into an easy, comfortable seat. Running down through the tailbone and lengthening through the spine and allowing the crown of the head to grow just a little bit taller. We'll inhale, bringing the arms overhead with thumbs to the forehead for good thoughts, to the lips for good words, and to the hearts for good intentions. The divine light within me honors and sees the divine light within you. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today.